You wake before sunrise to the sound of a newborn crying beside the fire. Everyone in the camp knows who the mother is. They watched the pregnancy. They saw the birth. But the father left no mark that anyone could see. No blood test, no birth certificate, no family name. So how did ancient humans identify fathers? The honest answer is uncomfortable. Most of the time, they could not prove fatherhood. They built confidence from timing, relationships, resemblance, trust, and the memory of the group. Fatherhood was often an inference before it became a fact. Your ancestors almost certainly understood that sex and pregnancy were connected. They watched other people and wild animals reproduce. But conception happens long before birth, and human ovulation is difficult to observe. Even when the connection was understood, the exact moment of conception remained hidden. Imagine a small mobile camp. A woman has lived with one partner for months. They sleep near each other, travel together, share food, and defend one another. When she becomes pregnant, that partner is the obvious candidate. Pair bonding did not create certainty, but it created a practical default. The group also carried a kind of living record. In a camp of a few dozen people, everyone noticed who spent time together, who disappeared into the trees, who argued, who separated, and who returned. There were no written records, but there was very little anonymity. Timing mattered. People could estimate whether a man had been present during the months before pregnancy became obvious. If he had been away on a long journey, suspicion might shift. But without precise calendars or knowledge of the fertile window, timing could narrow the possibilities, not settle them. Trust mattered even more. A man might accept a child because he trusted the mother, because their partnership was stable, or because the community treated the child as his. In practice, confidence could be strong without being scientifically certain. Jealousy and mate guarding probably played a role too. Human males are not unique in trying to reduce uncertainty about offspring. Staying close to a partner, discouraging rivals, and reacting to suspected affairs increase confidence. But control was never the same thing as proof. Then there was resemblance. A baby might have a man's nose, hair, eyes, body shape, or expressions. Humans are good at noticing family similarities, and research shows that faces can carry real kinship cues. But resemblance is noisy, especially in infants. A newborn can change dramatically in a few months. Two unrelated people can look alike. Close relatives may see what they expect to see. A grandmother who announces that the baby has a man's chin may be reporting a genuine resemblance or helping the family accept a useful social story. That social story mattered because an ancient child was expensive. Human children grow slowly, need years of feeding, and cannot survive through one parent alone. A father who hunted, gathered, protected, carried, taught, or shared food could improve a child's chances, even when his genetic certainty was incomplete. This is where the modern question can mislead us. We ask, who was the biological father? Ancient communities may also have asked, who will act as the father? Those answers could be the same. They did not have to be. A social father might be the mother's long-term partner, a man who publicly claimed the child, or a relative who took responsibility after death or separation. In some kinship systems, a mother's brother could become more important in a child's daily life than the biological father. Modern small-scale societies show how flexible these arrangements can be, but they are not frozen copies of prehistory. They are comparisons, not time machines. Still, they reveal possibilities that bones and stone tools cannot preserve. Anthropologist Brooke Skelza and her colleagues studied paternity among Himba pastoralists in Namibia. Genetic testing found a high rate of children fathered outside marriage, yet men and women were often surprisingly accurate about biological paternity. The important lesson is not the percentage. The Himba are a modern people with their own history. The lesson is that communities can track likely fatherhood through relationships, knowledge, and conversation, even when the official husband and biological father are not the same man. In parts of lowland South America, researchers have documented an even more surprising idea called partible paternity. Some societies traditionally believed that more than one man could contribute to the formation of a child. A child could therefore have a primary father and additional co-fathers. These men might recognize the child, provide food, perform rituals, or offer protection. From a modern genetic perspective, only one sperm fertilizes the egg. Socially, However, several men could be treated as fathers. Robert Walker and colleagues compared reports from 128 lowland South American societies. They found that beliefs in multiple fathers were widespread in several language families and may have deep roots in Amazonian prehistory. This does not prove that Paleolithic humans believed the same thing. It proves something more useful. Human cultures do not all solve paternity uncertainty in one universal way. Some reduce uncertainty, some tolerate it, some spread fatherhood across several relationships. The counterintuitive twist is that ancient humans may not always have needed to identify one exclusive father. In a cooperative camp, the safest child might be the one supported by several adults, not the one attached to the most accurate private theory of conception. As societies changed, the stakes changed. Mobile foragers owned relatively little land or stored wealth. Later farmers and herders accumulated fields, houses, livestock, and property that could pass between generations. Suddenly, descent could control resources. When inheritance follows the male line, identifying fathers becomes more than a family question. It becomes a political question. Who belongs to the lineage? Who receives land? Who may marry whom? Who inherits authority? Paternity can become a foundation of social power. Ancient DNA now lets researchers reconstruct biological families that prehistoric people themselves could never verify in a laboratory. At Gurgy les Nozats in France, Maître Relied and colleagues analyzed a Neolithic cemetery dating to roughly 4850 to 4500 BCE. They recovered genetic data from 94 individuals and reconstructed two major family trees, including one that stretched across 7 generations. The community was largely patrilineal and patrilineal, meaning descent followed male lines and many women moved in from outside groups. At Eulau in Germany, Wolfgang Hock and colleagues studied a 4,600-year-old grave containing a man, a woman, and two boys. DNA showed that they were a father, mother, and their sons, buried facing one another after a violent event. That pattern tells us that paternal ancestry mattered at Gurgy, but DNA cannot tell us what every father privately believed, what every mother said, or how disputes were settled. Genetics reveals biological relationships. It does not preserve conversations around the fire. This is powerful evidence that at least some late Stone Age communities recognized and honored a family unit that matches the biological nuclear family. Yet the grave still does not reveal how the man knew the boys were his while he was alive. At Hazleton North in Britain, researchers reconstructed a 5-generation pedigree from people buried about 5,700 years ago. Most of the genetically connected individuals descended from one man and 4 women, showing that paternal descent shaped access to the tomb. Together, Gurgy, Eulau, and Hazleton North show that biological fatherhood and male line ancestry could organize families, residence, and burial. They do not show a prehistoric paternity test. The method remains social. Partnership, timing, reputation, resemblance, and public recognition. And these methods could fail. A man might raise another man's biological child without knowing. A community might confidently assign the wrong father. A child might be claimed by a man who knew he was not the biological parent. Certainty was uneven because human relationships were uneven, but failure did not make fatherhood meaningless. Evolution does not require perfect information. It only requires decisions that work often enough. A man who usually invested in his own children, while sometimes caring for others, could still strengthen both family and alliance networks. Children also shaped fathers. Years of contact, carrying, teaching, and protection can create bonds that do not depend on genetic proof. A baby does not need a theory of inheritance. A baby needs someone who returns with food and stays near when danger approaches. So picture the newborn by the fire again. One man sits close to the mother, the camp expects him to help. The child may later resemble him, the mother's account, his confidence, and the group's memory all point in the same direction. Nobody can be absolutely certain. Yet by sunrise, the camp may already know who the father is, not because they have proven a hidden biological event, but because a relationship has been recognized and a responsibility has begun. That may be the deepest answer. Ancient humans identified fathers with clues, but they created fathers through behavior. Biology supplied a possibility. Trust, custom, and care turned that possibility into a social role. Modern DNA testing has made biological paternity measurable. but it has not replaced the older question. Even today, being a genetic father and being a present father are not always the same thing. Your ancestors lived with that distinction long before science gave it a name. If you enjoyed this journey into the distant past, subscribe for more stories about ancient humans and human evolution.